Get something, they remind me, and I appreciate that. Charles knows we get up here and we get sidetracked or forget something. But we do have these T-shirts on sale. Sally and Chrissy, Cissy, they designed this, put it together, went to their T-shirt factory, had them printed. They're on sale. They're back at the back, $20 each, and that's using that as a fundraiser. We appreciate your support. Now, we've got some elected officials, but unelected. Let me tell you, Sally Crusoe, where are you? Sally, stand up. I'm telling you what, she's doing a great job as the county chair, and thank you so much. She and Cissy they are so well organized, and it's like anything, you know, it takes more time than you think to just have a job like county chair. And, all right, Karen Conway, our county clerk, is here. Hi, Karen. Thank you. You and your dad are here. And we got our sheriff, Johnny Tadlock. Wait, where's our sheriff? There he is, right there. Okay. And we've got our new county treasurer, Linda Laster. She's right there. Wave, Linda. All right, there's our new treasurer. And we've got County Commissioner Jim Freeney. He's here. Jim. Okay, I better ask. Any other local? Okay, now, let me go to, we have a special guest here tonight. It's State Senator Judy McIntyre from Tulsa. She's going to, Judy, Senator, come up here. Okay, and she's a special guest. She's sort of representing the State Democratic Party, but not only is she a Tulsa, but she's a state senator, but she's also chair of the Tulsa County Democratic Party. So thank you for driving down here to McCurtain County, being here tonight. We appreciate your efforts to come down here. Thank you very much. And we're going to have some remarks from Kenneth Corn from Podo. He's the chair of the 2nd Congressional District Democratic Party. Kenneth.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here with you tonight. It's always great to come down to McCurtain County, my neighbors and friends. We're going to do some things different in the 2nd District this next year. And we're going to do some things that are going to allow us to put a real fight for the offices in this district, from state senator to state representative to Congress, so that we can have some real representation for the working men and women who live in southeast Oklahoma. We're not going to sit back in this district and allow the Republicans to run over us. We're not going to sit back and let them continue the lies they've been talking about Democrats with and spread on Facebook and the radio and the newspapers. We're not going to sit back and let them outraise us in funds. We're going to go to work, and we're going to re-energize this party in this district and tell people the truth about what's happening to their state and their nation. Folks, we're entering the holiday season here, and it's important for us to remember as we go through this holiday season that we are to care for one another. The greatest commandment that was given to us is to love one another. And let me tell you, if you look at the Republican Party platform and their policies, they do not match what Jesus taught us to do. In fact, most of their policies all go to one thing, and that's money. Everything comes down to the bottom line, how they can let their rich friends get richer at the expense of working men and women in this state and in this nation. And the Bible tells us very clearly that the root of all evil is money. The love of money will bring you down. And so we've got to get back to having policies that are put in place that ensures that there is a human element to it, that they have real impacts on lives of men and women and their families throughout this state and this country. And it's time that we stand up as Democrats and defend our party and ensure that we're doing everything possible that people know what we really stand for. That we are the party that created Social Security so that our seniors didn't die in poverty, that they could live out the rest of their life with some dignity. We are the party that created Medicare. And let me tell you, do you think the party that voted 100% against Medicare, the Republican Party, will be the party that saves it? They will not. Folks, we're the party that makes sure kids can get a quality education, that people can get a chance to get health care. Those are the things we stand for. And we've let them paint us as something we're not. So in this district, we're going to go to work. We're going to do everything possible to ensure that we have some victories come the next election in this district, and we're once again the bastion of Democratic politics in this state. Now, I have a good friend in Poto. She has asked me that when she dies, if I will deliver the eulogy at her funeral. But one of the things she has asked me to do is, before she passes away, she wants me to bring a Republican, one to sit on her left-hand side and one to sit on her right-hand side. And I've never figured this out because she's a yellow dog Democrat. And she told me, she said, I really need this done. And I said, Ruth, I just can't figure out why you want this done. She says, I want to die like Christ between two thieves. Folks, let me tell you something. We can joke about these things, but they're robbing us. They're robbing our children's future when they'll put all the money into big corporations but won't spend money to give our kids an education in this state. When they're willing to steal our water from southeast Oklahoma and sell it to Texas or give it to Oklahoma City, they're robbing us. When they're willing to give tax breaks to companies overseas to take the jobs instead of creating jobs here at home, they're robbing us. They're robbing us. All because they want to make sure their rich friends get wealthier. And it's time that we stand up as Democrats in the coffee shop and put an end to this. It's time we stand up and write letters to the editor and put an end to it. It's time that we are heard and get away from this thing, because I'll promise you one thing, there's as many Democrats worshiping on the benches at churches on Sunday as there are Republicans. And it's time that we make sure that people know that Democrats are Christian, and we're going to take this country back and make sure working men and women are taken care of again. Thanks for all opportunity with me.
Thank you, Kenneth. Let me say that these tables did not get decorated by themselves. There was a decoration committee. Let me start with Ann Zimmer, Ann Wave, and Lincoln Rose Flowers and Gifts right there. And Brad and Charlotte Hearn, they're right over here. They came in, they helped. We got Sally Crusoe and Cissy. Okay, I think that's the decorating committee right there. We thank everybody that participated in the decorations. I lost my place. Let me find my place right here. Okay, I think we're ready for a special presentation. Cissy? Oh, okay.
Tonight, we're here to recognize a very special young lady who went from the paper mill to the medical field. And Senator Ellis is going to kind of say a few words on her behalf. But here with me is an RN supervisor from Country Style Healthcare. She's my supervisor. And together we have watched nurse Lesa Dixon in action and what she actually does, not only here in McCurtain County, but Choctaw County being one of Jerry Ellis's other counties that he represents. So tonight, Lesa Dixon is being honored by the McCurtain County Democratic Party, where she's going to be receiving a senatorial certificate, which no other RN has ever received here in McCurtain County. So at this time, Lesa Dixon, will you please come up to the front? Nurse Miller will be putting an RN badge on Lisa's collar, and she's getting a gift certificate from our agency to recognize that Lesa works for Oklahoma Healthcare Solutions, and she serves on the Medicare side. And we're just wanting her to know how much we appreciate that if every nurse acts like she does, we would have a lot of good, healthy people right here tonight. So now I'm going to turn this over to Senator Ellis.
Thank you, Cissy. Known Lisa's family further back, of course, being my age, I know the older ones better than I do Lesa, actually, but I've known them for a long time, all my life, and they've lived in the Valiant area. And we want to present this certificate of appreciation and going above and beyond the call of duty and actually saving somebody's life in the nursing field. Several years ago, many of you probably read about in the paper when they did the downsizing at the paper mill, and about 200 people laid off. Well, these two young ladies right here were one of them, and they landed on their feet by turning around and going and getting their LPN and their RN, got their training right here at this campus and next door right here in McCurtain County. And so they, you know, it's not easy when you get turned upside down in your career and you got to start all over again. Well, they landed on their feet and came out ahead. And I just want to present this certificate of appreciation for all that you did. Lesa, thank you. Thank you.
I'd just like to thank my mom and dad, and thank God, first of all. It was a rough road, but I made it, and anybody could do it. Thank you.
Any of these events, it's nice to have sponsors. You notice there we had several sponsors that stepped up early to make sure that we had the funds to cover this event. And the first sponsor I want to recognize is our former county treasurer, Joanne Strong. Joanne Wave, county treasurer about 20 years, and I will tell you about Joanne, she's such a good Democrat. When we had those speakings, all of those years, she attended faithfully every speaking that we had. She was not on the ballot in the off years, but she was there at all of those speakings, encouraging the candidates that were speaking. We've got Jerry and Joyce McCombs right here. Thank y'all for being a sponsor tonight. We have Senator Jerry Ellis in the Southeast Times. They're a sponsor tonight. We have Charles and Jane Nation, Norwood Nation Funeral Home right here in Idaville. Thank y'all for being a sponsor. And we have Nellie Shaw right over here. She's a sponsor of the evening. A little bit. And we have Curtis McDaniels right here. He's a sponsor. Donald Ray is a sponsor. And Sally and Cissy Crusoe, they're here. They're sponsored. They did everything this fall. This is really the fall meeting of the McCurtain County Democratic Party, and from beginning to end, Sally and Cissy have been out there working every day. And we also have Joy Hill at Hills Nursing Home in Idaville that's a sponsor. So let the sponsors know that you appreciate them helping with this fall meeting of the Democratic Party. Now, the next on the agenda is we're going to have presentations by Curtis McDaniel and Donald Ray. So Curtis McDaniel, if you'll come up and tell us why we ought to vote for you for state representative.
Thank you, Don. First of all, thank y'all for coming. You know, I know it took some effort for you to get here tonight because there's lots of other things going on Saturday night, so I was going to listen to political speaking. But we do appreciate you being here. I've been all over the county, and I've talked to lots of folks. Some of them I haven't seen since I was a child growing up here, but they're all telling me some of the same things. And one of the biggest issues that we face out here is the water. And as you know, Jerry Ellis and Charlotte Hearn have done a great job so far, along with others, in keeping it here in southeast Oklahoma. But there's still a fight, and we're going to have to continue to do that. We'll have to continue to fight to see to it that our children have a place to play, tourism has a place to go, and industry has a chance to come in here. Now, we need other things besides water. We have to fix our infrastructure down here. Always improve your infrastructure. And we have an 8-year project going on Highway 70. We have to be sure that the money comes down here. Right now, Oklahoma City would like to keep it up there, as they would for education. Education, I'm big on education. I'm a high school principal at Smithfield, and folks, they'd like to close us down. I have kids right now that ride a bus an hour to get to Smithfield from Old W. If you have another hour to that to get to Brokenville, that's 2 hours for a kindergartner to sit on a bus in a day's time. That doesn't make sense. The common sense thing is to leave our rural schools alone. I'll fight to see that happens. I'll also fight to get some jobs in here because we need to do that. The economy in this country is going down, but we have people here that like to work, and I'll work to see that we get something done for them. Folks, the people that cook the meal tonight, the rural fire departments, they're essential to our existence down here. Oklahoma City and Tulsa would like to cut them. They'd like to see to it that they don't show up down here. We need those folks. We need rural health down here. I'll fight to keep those folks in place. And the elderly folks, we do appreciate all that you've done. We're going to have to continue to fight, as Mr. Warren said, to see to it that they are taken care of. I love this county. I love being around people. And folks, I do appreciate you for being here, and if you have the opportunity to, please show up a week from Tuesday and vote for me when you get the opportunity. Thank you very much. I appreciate you being here. Have a good night.
Okay, and Donna Ray from Hayward.
I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in this county. I live east of town in Redland, not Hayward, although I spent a lot of time in Hayward. I worked at Hayward School for 35 years, superintendent for the last 16 before I retired in 2008. And then I lost my mind and decided I would do this. But anyway, I have had this on my mind for a number of years, as far back as 82, considered running for office. I know this county well. I've been here, spent all my life here, except for the time I was in the military, and that would have been in the Air Force, 66 through 70. I know some of the major issues are just the same as Curtis mentioned, jobs, and that's true nationwide. I would like to work with all the counties and chambers and whoever else I can to get jobs in here, possibly work on tax incentives to get jobs in. Of course, the infrastructure, the Highway 70, I'd like to see that completed too. And also there's plans to straighten out 259 south of Idabel, which is very hazardous, and we've lost many lives down there. I'm real interested in that. And along with Mrs. Hearn and Senator Ellis, I'm all for keeping our water in the county. Absolutely, I won't budge on that one. I think it's a lifeblood for our county as far as tourism and jobs. That creates jobs, brings money into the county. Those Texans like to come up here, and I like to see them. And I'm also pro-life, pro-marriage, one-man life. I'd appreciate your vote in this upcoming election. I know it's short term, but it's important nonetheless, even though we're getting in office late. You know, I think the session will be started for 16 days or so before we even get up there, whoever's elected. But I'd appreciate your vote, and thank you for inviting me out. I appreciate you. Thank you.
And we appreciate Curtis McDaniel and Donna Ray taking their time. And let me tell you, folks, you can just say, well, it's just McCurtain County, but it just goes on 7 days a week, and every time you turn around, it's another event, and it just wears you down. And I remember years ago when I ran for DA, and we were in Tom in the afternoon, and Idabel, and run to Rosemont, and then have to run to Boswell, and then run to Clayton, and just Jerry does that, and he's got a box over in Atoka County. 1 or 2? Oh, okay, well, it's a shame, but you just don't realize the time and effort and the drain that it runs on you just day after day after day. We just have to say, thank you, candidates, for making the sacrifice just to put your name on the ballot and to run for office. And let me tell you, it's pretty humbling. Go out there and saying, I want you to vote for me. It's a lot of popularity contest when it comes down to it. And this evening, I need to also stop and thank the Combishy Career Technology Center for letting us have this meal here tonight. Is there any representative of the Tech Center that's, okay, I didn't see Johnny Meredith or Scott that was here this evening. And again, a great big round of applause to the McCurtain County Rural Fire Department for preparing this meal. Byron Foster jumped right in there in the beginning and said, do you have who's cooking and what are you having? And we want to help no matter what it is. And we said yes. And so here they are out there, got here at 3 o'clock this afternoon and cooked this great meal for us. And we appreciate the rural firefighters and Senator Ellis. He's done a great job keeping funding coming in we don't think about it unless you live out there at Garvin or Holly Creek or up at Hochatown, that the state grants and federal grants that helps these little volunteer fire departments with their training and equipment. We are down to the time of State Senator Jerry Ellis. He's going to come up here and introduce our featured speaker for the evening, Senator Ellis.
Thank you, Don. Just want to make a few comments here about what Senator Corn referred to as about the working people of the state. In 2012, the working Oklahomans need to vote like your future depends on the outcome of the election. I'm telling you, it's on the line, and you may not realize it. The working folks of Oklahoma are literally under attack. The past session, Oklahoma faced a $500 million shortfall. The Republican plan to balance the budget was to reform all 6 retirement systems in the state. If that's not coming after the working people, I don't know what you'd call it. And balance the budget on the backs of the working people. Let me give you 2 or 3 examples of what they were doing. Senate Bill 826, attack on the retirement of 20,000 firefighters in Oklahoma. The state was literally burning down. Passed the Senate 25-16. They told them on the Wednesday, when the building was full of firefighters, go home. We've reached an agreement with your lobbyist that's representing you. You have nothing to worry about. Everybody signed off on it. Once they went home, the next morning, then they put it on the agenda to bring it out. 7 senators gone home. There's 41 there. I sat back against the wall and watched them debate, and they twisted arms till they finally got 25 Republicans to vote for it, and they passed it 25-16 to cut the retirement of the firefighters in the state of Oklahoma. I was the last one to say anything, and I don't know why I said that. But I sat against the wall and watched Judy shaking her head. Yes, she knows what I did. But I walked back to my chair, and the gallery was full of firefighters. And I raised my hand, and I said, Mr. President, bet if the Capitol building was on fire, everybody'd vote no on this building. And God, let me tell you right now, they hooped and hollered and applauded, and they gavelled them down and told them to shut up, and they were mad because they sent them home the day before and lied to them, and they wouldn't shut up and sit down. And I don't blame them. Let me tell you about House Bill 1380, take away due process hearing for teachers that are fired. House Bill 2128, tort reform, Jerry McCullen. $300,000 hard cap. Let me tell you about a school teacher was there from Collinsville. A Republican school teacher was there. And let me tell you her story. She was there, and her face was messed up from being burned while she was in surgery. And what had happened, went in for reconstructive surgery and had a bleeder vein, and the way that they were going to seal it off, I don't know with the procedure, but anyway, the doctor's glove, there was rubbing alcohol everywhere, and the doctor's gloves caught on fire. Wayne's shaking his head, he probably knows the person, Connie, I believe is her first name. Turns around there, and the nurse took the gloves off and turned back around, and the hood that was over the lady was in flames and everything, and it messed her face up. She could only talk for a short period of time without drooling out of the side of her mouth. She held up in tears, she held up in the committee. This is what I looked like before it happened. She was a beautiful blonde-headed woman. And now her face is all messed up. And they're telling her, she said, you're telling me that $300,000 is all I can get for this. And she was a Republican. And I caught her out in the hallway when she came back. The bill was going to be heard on the full Senate. I said, do me a favor and go home and change the restoration and become a Democrat, and we'll run you for office. And that's exactly what she needs to do. My wife said, what do you want to do? Punish them, make them look at her every day? And I said, that's exactly what I want to do. It's wrong, people. The Republicans want to sell your water. Charlie and Hearn and I were in Durant this morning by 8 o'clock on a panel up there to discuss water with the leadership of Oklahoma. The courts have ruled 3 times in the district federal court against Texas, and now on the 7th of September, the
Court of Appeals in Denver, they upheld the lower court's rulings, and basically what they've said is Oklahoma does not have to sell their water to Texas. That's it. Okay? Texas has lied, they've threatened, they've sued, they've done everything you can think of, and now they say they want to sit down at the table and visit with their good neighbors to the north about taking their water. They should have negotiated before they sued. The rich folks who have helped elect Republicans in Oklahoma need our water for drilling and do the fracking in Texas. Water to Texas has become a hot potato for the Republicans. Campaign donors say yes to taking the water while their constituents are saying no. It takes about 80,000 barrels of fresh water to do the fracking and separation of the shale on one well. In the 18 or 20 counties around Fort Worth, they have 16,150 drilling rigs. You multiply 16,000 times 80,000 barrels of fresh water, and you see how much water they'll take out of this country. The State House is divided three ways right now, with 16 or 18 members of the Tea Party that was elected in the Republican sweep the last election, and they fight the main core Republicans more than the Democrats do. It is mass confusion in the House of Representatives right now. Visit with your family and friends about the tragedy of straight party voting. In 2010, straight party voting has paralyzed state government in Oklahoma. There is a difference between state and federal government. Once again, to the working people in Oklahoma, make no mistake about it, what the Republicans think of you. The educators are dirtbags. That's what the chief of staff or the state school superintendent said. The labor commissioner referred to state employees as feral hogs at the trough. This young lady here was the only one that had enough guts to stand up and hold a press conference at Democratic headquarters up here and call the labor commissioner out on it. I happened to be up there for a water meeting, and I said, "You want me to come down there and join you?" "Well, sure, come on down." My comments were, the next time the state's burning down, don't call a firefighter, call the hogs. This time I want to introduce a guy that's running for Congress in this district. He's a former district attorney, former U.S. prosecutor. He's a friend of the working men and women of Oklahoma and not afraid to say no to selling water. At this time, Rob Wallace. Good evening. I think this is the second time I've had the incredible misfortune of having to follow Senator Jerry Ellis. I don't know how you outdo Corn and Ellis. So if you start snoring, I won't be offended. And if you lean over your head, hits the table, it'll wake you up, and we'll get back to work. Let me first say that it's an humbling thing to see public office. And it's an incredible responsibility that these gentlemen have taken on that we're here to celebrate tonight. And I want to recognize another gentleman who has a lot of guts. His name's Wayne Harriman, and he's seated right here in the back of the room, and he's my opponent in the Democratic primary for the congressional seat. And I want to personally thank Wayne for being here tonight. Both of us are missing football games today. We might be rooting for different teams, so you know, it's rare you get a political campaign that maybe pits the orange against the crimson, but here we go. Appreciate you being here, Wayne. Good to see you. Curtis, McDaniels, and Donald Ray are heroes. And let me tell you why they're heroes. Because, and this is going to sound bad, guys, and I apologize in advance for it, but here are two guys that are willing to fail publicly. You know, you can have personal failure. You can have an ideal lifestyle. You can have an idea of where you want to go with life. And you can educate yourself, and you can work hard.
And sometimes you fail, and you fail at home. You fail in the quiet of your bedroom or your living room or your den. But when you decide to put your name on a ballot and ask people to support you for an office, you have put yourself in a position to fail publicly. And that takes courage. And so I want us to give another hand to these two fellows who are willing to do just that. Senator McIntyre knows about that, but she's obviously not risk averse. Not risk averse because she'll take on people at the Capitol the way she does, but she also told me that she went deer hunting with Senator Corn this morning. And I couldn't help, I had to ask if she'd heard that story about Vice President Cheney going hunting. She claimed she didn't. And she said she and Kenneth looked for that deer for a long time because he knows he hit it, but they just couldn't find the blood trail. I told her I'd been bass fishing for a long, long time. It was always the biggest one that got away. And it's great to have you down here tonight. I appreciate being here. I'm humbled to be here to help celebrate these two guys and the race that they decided to embark upon to represent this part of the country in the legislature. Senator Ellis does a fantastic job of representing this part of the country in the legislature, and he needs help. There are Democrats up there in that Capitol building who desperately need help. We are privileged to live in one of the two reddest states in the country. A couple of days ago, I was talking to a fellow who represents some folks out in Utah, the other of the reddest states in the country. And we were talking about issues that have always been uniquely Democratic issues. And Senator, why is it that we always come back to talking about the working men and women of America when we talk about Democrats? And it's because Democrats understand that this economy is not driven by Wall Street bankers. This economy is driven by consumers. Those Wall Street bankers will tell you that 70% of this economy is driven by consumers. Folks that go to Walmart. Folks that go down to the local grocery store to buy the food that they eat. Folks that have to spend money every day to live. And yet this government has been so focused upon taking care of those who've never wondered where their next meal was going to come from, that they have lost track of what you and I know, and that is this is a tough place to make a living right now. There was a time in this country that if you were committed to working hard and you were committed to playing by the rules, you were going to be just fine. You were going to have a nice lifestyle and you were going to have a nice retirement. And Social Security and Medicare were going to be there to help you take care of yourself in retirement. And now we can't count on that. And why can we not count on that? Because the Wall Street bankers have been in control. They've never worried about how they were going to pay for the operation or the heart attack or the cancer that they might come down with. They've never had to worry about that. They always had the money. When they went to the emergency room and paid $6 for a Tylenol, they didn't have to worry about it. They didn't understand that that's cost shifting. They didn't understand that there are a lot of people out here that don't have health insurance, so that when those of us who do go to the emergency room, we have to pay a lot more because that cost has to be spread among those that have. And that really is what it comes down to, Senator Corn. It's a principle. And it's a principle that in this country today, based upon what's going on in our politics, both in Oklahoma City and in Washington, that if your money works for you, you're going to be just fine. But if you've got to work for your money, you can't make it today. That's the way the system is structured. And if they continue to have their way, it will only get worse. Social Security, as we know it, will be gone. It'll be privatized. Medicare, as we know it, will be gone. And home health agencies will cease to exist. And we'll go back to a time that we knew in our history where you went home to die and it was a miserable place and a miserable time. It's time for Democrats to draw a line in the sand. We got to draw a line in the sand, and we got to say it stops here. Speaking of lines, I thought it was interesting that somebody told this story a while ago when I I won't identify who it was, that his wife was having a birthday. And that he had called Bob Stoops, and just to celebrate her birthday, he wanted to make sure that the kicker went out today and kicked his longest field goal he'd ever kicked. And it just happened to be the same distance as her age. And I said to him, I just can't believe that kicker had only kicked a 28-yard field goal. That's drawing a line right there. And I know somebody probably going to get a line drawn on him tonight just for hearing that story. We're under attack. We're under attack. Our way of life is under attack. And if you think that rural schools are going to get to stay open under Maurice's leadership, you got another thing coming. And if you think they care that a kindergartner is going to have to ride 2 hours on a bus to get to school, you're wrong. They don't care. They talk about family values. And yet the family values in this country have always been intensely resident in the rural parts of this country. You know, my experience in rural Oklahoma is people take care of each other. I was running for DA in 1998, and I spent some time not too far from Smithville, Curtis, a place called the Loop, over at Richard. Maybe you know where that is. We call it the Loop, and around the Loop, there's a bunch of chicken houses. And I tell you, if the power goes down or it gets hot and somebody can't close a curtain, neighbors take care of neighbors, and everybody goes over there and helps. We don't find people locked behind doors worried about what their neighbors are doing or thinking. We find neighbors that help each other. We find generations of families on family farms taking care of each other, working hard together. Those are family values, and those are the family values that are under attack when Oklahoma City and Tulsa elect more than half the legislature. Those are the kind of things that are under attack when the urban centers of this country are writing the policy for those of us in rural America. We need some rural common sense in the State House. We need some rural common sense in the State Senate to help Senator Ellis. We need some rural common sense, Wayne, in the Congress to help those people figure it out. And are we getting it? Is it a shock to anybody that Congress's approval rating is now in the single digits? Why are we stuck, Senator Warren, talking about the money issues? We're stuck talking about the money issues because money is buying and paying for the Congress, the legislature, and I'm sorry to say, in some instances, the courts. It's time not to just take the country back. It's time for Democrats, working men and women, to stand up and say, we're drawing a line in the sand. It's over. It's done. We are no longer going to sit on the sidelines. We are no longer going to sit quietly and let you ram this stuff down our throats in rural America. We are going to stand up for the issues that Don Shaw and I fought for in the courtrooms for years. Things that are right and wrong, not right and left. We're going to talk about what's right. And that's not a direction, that's a principle. These fellows are running for a very, very important job. And I'm humbled to be here tonight to talk to you about them and the job they have to do. Education is the key to freedom in this country. Always has been. It's the way that people can start in a family of have-nots and wind up being the haves. Because if you don't have free public education, you can't have upward mobility in this economy. It doesn't happen. We need a commitment to free public education. And that means education for everybody, not just those that are privileged. A couple of days ago, I saw a sign, had a quote on it. It said, "Education is the birthright of every American." Education is the birthright of every American. It's one of the principles that the founders understood. It's one of the principles that people in public education for years and years have understood. Is if we educate on the front end, we don't have to, Sheriff, we don't have to incarcerate on the back end. If we'll invest the money in people on the front end, we don't have to spend the money to warehouse them on the back end, Don. And yet, what do we see? We see more and more people committed to the prisons because we are not investing enough money on the front end. The sheriff's seeing them every day out there on the street. They're trying to escape. They're trying to hide. One of the ways they're doing it is they're getting high. What they need to do is get to work. And many, many of them would get to work if we would simply create the jobs for them. What a great story that the special presentation this evening was. An instance where industry shut down, public education took over, retraining took place, and tremendous successes followed. We're standing in a facility that is a representative of the finest vocational and technical schools in the United States of America. And we've got a chief educator elected in this state who wants to dismantle. If you want to see more presentations like the one we saw tonight, tell her no. Democrats, draw a line in the sand. You drive across Oklahoma City, and there is this gorgeous new building going up, the skyline of Oklahoma City. Beautiful, amazing, glass tower. I don't know how they're going to get to it because the potholes in I-40 are so bad they tear your car apart while you're trying to drive across it. But isn't that what we see? I remember back in the early 1980s, Kenneth was in the single digits. But I remember it was morning in America. Government's not part of the problem. Government is the problem, we were told. And we saw a tremendous surge in corporate profits, saw tremendous growth in wealth in the nation, and yet Main Street in every small town in America was crumbling. My daddy was an Otasco manager. 41 years he beat the tile at Otasco store, right up until 1986 when Walmart finally destroyed it. There is a limit at which we arrive where big corporations cease to be a benefit to people like us. And they'll tell us, buy a little Walmart stock. And we'll try to scrape a little money together and buy a little Walmart stock. And then they'll tell us we're wealthy because we own a little bit of Walmart stock. Well, I tell you what, we're never going to own as much as Mr. Sam did, or as much as his kids have shared since he went on to be with his maker. And yet, people who have a little bit of Walmart stock will vote Republican because they think it's in their economic best interest. We've been told that for years. It's in their economic best interest. And we'll vote against our economic best interest every day because we buy what we see on Fox News. Freudian slip. Fellas, that's what you're up against. Does it surprise anybody? Does it surprise anybody, Senator Ellis, that they need a little bit of water down in Dallas? Does it surprise anybody? And they'll tell us it's going to cost way too much to develop those water resources for us up here, millions and millions of dollars to develop those water resources for us, but they're going to build a pipeline from here to Dallas. And as much water as they need, they're going to build a big pipeline from here to Dallas. Does it surprise anybody when there's so much money in politics? Does it surprise anybody that that money's coming from folks who don't live like you and I live? I stood in the courts before Loudoun County and in the federal courts in Muskogee for the last few years, talking about what's right, and what's wrong. Sending people to prison that take stuff that doesn't belong to them. The last time I checked, when you take something that doesn't belong to you, that's called stealing. And Senator Corn, you're right, that's a biblical principle. It's also a legal principle. And yet, there are those, not many of them live down here, there are those who are ready to let somebody in Texas take what's not theirs, and that's the water right here in eastern Oklahoma. And if you think there's surplus water in eastern Oklahoma, right now I'm driving across Lake Eufaula every morning going to work, every afternoon coming home. And if you think there's surplus water in Oklahoma, you just need to go out there and look. Drive across Pine Creek out here and take a look. Tell me if you think there's surplus water here right now. There's stuff sticking out of water in Eufaula. I hadn't stuck out of water in Eufaula in my lifetime. Yet we got surplus water that we can send to Texas so they can frack wells with it. Senator Ellis is a hero. He's a hero because he's one of the loudest voices speaking against the sale of water to Texas. He's a hero. Give him a hand. You know, we spent a lot of time, like 20 years ago, I think it was, Betty, I started emceeing the picnic, the little 4-cane Democratic picnic. I think Senator Corn was 9. Was already making speeches at that picnic. Good ones. Has ever since. We were proud to send him to the Senate. I think it's sad that he's too old to be in it anymore. Isn't that what they said?
Yeah, we send our best to the House so we can replace him with those Tea Partiers Senator Ellis is talking about. We got to draw a line in the sand. We got to say that the special election that's coming up right here, right now, is the beginning of something great in the state of Oklahoma. We got to say that when it comes to education, when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to research and development, when it comes to water, that it stops right now. And just like that water's been receding from the shoreline, we got to have a flood. And that flood's got to be Democratic voters going to the polls and voting Democratic and not Republican. You know, there's 65% registration advantage in this congressional district right now. 65%. All we got to do is stay home and we win. All we got to do is stay home on the ballot and we win. There's not a public school teacher, public school administrator anywhere in the state of Oklahoma ought to be a Republican, and they do. If you're a teacher, and you're not sitting in the teacher's lounge telling people that, you need to get after it. If you're a school administrator, and you're not singing that song at end service or every time you come in contact with your colleagues at the Administrators Association meetings, if you're not singing that song, you need to get after it. Because we got to tell them enough is enough. That the working men and women, the people who rely on public education for upward mobility, the people who rely on infrastructure, the people who rely on rural firefighters and rural law enforcement, that we will no longer let you dismantle those wings of government that have worked for us for our lifetimes. We are going to draw a line in the sand, and we're going to do it right here in this election, and we're going to say from here on out, Democrats are going to win because Democrats do things that help people in rural Oklahoma. We're going to sit in our houses that have rural water running out of the faucets, and we're going to understand that if it hadn't been for Democrats, there wouldn't be water coming out of those faucets. We're going to sit in our houses that have REA power in them, and we're going to say we know the Republicans were against the Rural Electrification Act when it was passed. They're still against it. They'd like to dismantle it all. They'd like to sell it off into private companies. And we're going to say enough is enough. Democrats are going to win, and Democrats are going to say those were government programs that worked, and if we didn't have those programs, we wouldn't have running water and electricity in rural America. And anybody sitting in a rural household in this country ought to be a Republican, and they do, and we got to tell them to stop. And it starts when we elect a Democrat to the House seat right here. So fellas,
I started by telling you that you've decided to fail publicly. Sorry about that. And now I'm ending with telling you have an incredible responsibility. The folks that are going to run as Democrats on the ballot in this election cycle in Oklahoma have an incredible responsibility. Without a doubt, this is the most important election that will occur in my lifetime. Without a doubt, the course of the future of eastern Oklahoma is going to be decided in this election cycle. Years from now, our grandchildren will look back at this election, and they will see that 2010 was an aberration. They will see that in 2010, Republicans overstepped. They will see that in 2012, reasonable people in McCurtain County elected Democrats to the legislature, fellas. They will see that in 2012, the people of the state of Oklahoma said, we're tired of being the reddest. They will see that in 2012, in the state of Oklahoma, reasonable people went to the polls and voted in favor of working men and women of America. And I hope that when my grandchildren are looking at that history, that they find the names of people that are in this room tonight. I appreciate you being here tonight. I appreciate you listening to me. It's encouraging to know that Democrats will turn out on a Saturday night, because it's hard to get anybody to turn out any time anymore. But it ought to tell people something, that we can fill a room on a Saturday night. People are tired. People are ready to stand up for what's right. And if you agree with me, I want you to say amen.
Amen.
Again, let us thank our out-of-county, Wayne Harriman, thank you for coming. Rob Wallace, thank you for coming. Senator Judy McIntyre from Tulsa, thank you for coming tonight, busy schedule. Kenneth Corn, thank you for coming, and good luck to our two candidates. Just as we close, you know, today, folks, it's so easy to vote. Now, just as an example, we'll have open voting down at the courthouse at the election office from 8 to 6 on Friday, November the 4th. We'll have open voting from 8 in the morning until 1 o'clock on Saturday, November the 5th. On Monday, there's going to be voting at the courthouse from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then now on Tuesday, November the 8th, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., the regular polling places will be open. Just no reason not to be able to vote, but we see it time after time. I think we have 10,000 registered Democrats in McCurtain County. Is that about right? 12,000. You know, we'll look up the newspaper and we'll have 4,000 or 5,000 Democrats casting votes. My goodness, folks. But then when it's over with, we'll complain about what did the voters do? Well, just not enough voters went to the polls. Thank you. Good night. Thank you, folks, for coming. This is a Saturday night. God bless you. Good night.